Hello. Hello, people. I'm your host, the Catholic Broski. What's up? I don't know what else to do today. I'm kind of bored. Let's do a reaction to some VTUBERs. Because why not? Not gonna lie, I don't have the best premium subscription to my YouTube, so I'm going to play an ad off stream, and then yeah. Anyways, let's get this party started. How about it? Here we go. Check on my monitor. I found this one. We're going to do this one. Actually, let's do the original one. Here we go. Yep. When one gender is mistreated, the other ends up becoming disenfranchised as well. Imran Khan the Futurist. Okay.
Hey, internets. One of the more bizarre questions out there is something I like to refer to as the VTuber question. Are VTubers cringe and degenerate? Or are they
depends on the VTuber.
fine examples of just pure, harmless, youthful fun? The answer to which is all pretty subjective and something you can argue either way. But what's more interesting is a question that often comes packed with the VTuber question, which is, are VTubers political? And that question often gets swept under the rug with usually the milquetoast answer, which is that, oh, it just depends on the VTuber. Some VTubers like Kirsch focus on politics a lot.
Isn't that what I just said?
Then you have others like Pippa who are occasionally political, and then you have fun little moments like this one.
What do you think of men who get cooked?
I think that's really sad. They should beat their wives.
Peachy, isn't it? But honestly, most of them tend to avoid the subject of politics entirely, unless it's in the context of a joke. Like, for example, Iron Mouse reacting to AI of Donald Trump and Joe Biden playing video games. Which is political, but obviously just satire. Which is honestly a smart position for most VTubers to take. Treat politics as something to laugh at, instead of taking a serious stance, so that way they don't alienate half their audience. And so that's the answer you're gonna usually get when you ask the question of, are VTubers political? But that's not where I'm taking this. There's a much more interesting way to answer this question, which is to interpret it as, are VTubers inherently political? Is there
I'm gonna say no. However, there are a lot of VTubers that take political directions and whatnot, but well, let's see where this goes.
There's something about VTubers that has inadvertently proven something about modern culture through their rise and success that most people wouldn't even notice or even think about. That perhaps there's an experiment that all VTubers have been participating in whether they know it or not, which handedly disproves a major mainstream media narrative. Intentional logical fallacies are used by various media pundits all the time, which is why I am partnered with Ground News. Different media sources can report the same story in ways that makes it look like the exact opposite of what's going on is true. And Ground News helps you see through this bias by compiling thousands of articles and organizing them by their bias and political meaning, with features designed mainly to save you time in comparison to if you were to try and do this by yourself. For example, there are many articles going around this month on what's going to happen to Donald Trump's legal troubles and criminal charges since he became president last month. Kind of puts a whole damper on the whole thing, doesn't it? And Ground News provides a lot of features to help you easily sort through these articles and see through the bias. First off,
Which, by the way, I kind of agree with the approach that Ground News takes here, where they try to attack the whole political spectrum. Yeah, you know what? Not gonna lie, I'm kind of biased myself, so it's good to have someone like that to, point out what I'm not seeing myself. So I'm a fan.
Gives a nice summary of the issue. Prosecutors don't want judges to toss out Trump's criminal conviction, but Nice at keeping it going would be difficult since he's now president-elect, so they are instead trying to stall the case. It also gives a summary of different sources reporting on the topic. Right-leaning sources seem to suggest the prosecutors are obsessed, going too far, the whole thing is lawfare. Centrist sources simply state the DA wants to pause the case but uphold the conviction until he leaves office. And left sources like MSNBC reported this bad orange man is using his election win to evade justice. If you were to ask me, the whole thing is dumb since it was a victimless crime anyways. But Ground News can help you come to your own conclusion. Let's easily see which sources are reporting and how, such as with this handy bias distribution chart, or things like this that let you see who owns the media sources reporting on the topic. You can also click on a source to be taken directly to their version of the article, or find similar articles quickly and easily via the similar news topics feature. There's also blind spot, which lets you see at a glance topics that are being ignored or underreported by various media sources based on how far to the left or
This
right
is
they
not to
lean,
say I
which lets you
use Ground News, by the way, but I have an open mind. I might try it out later on.
see things that you might ordinarily miss due to the reporting bias. Lastly, Ground News is independent and subscriber funded, so to get the same features I have, you can go to ground.news/MentisWave or scan my QR code to now get 50% off the Manage plan, which gets you unlimited access. But anyways, the answer to that question, have VTubers accidentally proven something about our culture that mass media doesn't really want to talk about, is in fact a very large yes. And it's something that starts to
What? Okay, let's find out. I'm curious.
reveal itself when you start to examine the phrase Manic, Pixie, Dreamgirl. A fantastic example
Manic, Pixie, Dream Girl. Okay, if you qualify me as a VTuber, I am not a Dream Girl. But let's see where this is going.
Girl. A fantastic example of how modern cultural critique is filled with a lot of really dumb ideas that are both largely misandrous towards men, but interestingly, in this particular case, it's also something that has a side effect of being severely damaging to young women, in that it preaches to young ladies a false narrative that, when taken seriously, will result in them making a series of really bad and dumb—
Okay, so he's not talking about VTubers. Let's back up for a second. Let me make sure I understand what he's saying.
to talk about, is in fact a very large yes. And it's something that starts to reveal itself when you start—
I think I missed something. Hang on.
due to the reporting bias. Lastly, Ground News is independent and subscriber funded, so to get the same features I have, you can go to ground.news/MentisWave or scan my QR code to now get 50% off the Manage plan, which gets you unlimited access. But anyways, the answer to that question, have VTubers accidentally proven something about our culture that mass media doesn't really want to talk about, is in fact a very large yes. And it's something that starts to reveal itself when you start to examine the phrase Manic, Pixie, Dreamgirl. A fantastic example of how modern cultural critique is filled with a lot of really dumb ideas that are both largely misandrous towards men, but interestingly, in this particular case, it's also something that has a side effect of being severely damaging to young women, in that it preaches to young ladies a false narrative that, when taken seriously, will result in them making a series of really bad and dumb decisions that will ultimately ruin her life and destroy any romantic prospects she may have.
Our purple pill debate, dating over 30, ask women over 30, dating over 40. I'm not familiar. Are these subreddits? Yeah, these are subreddits. I'm not gonna look into this right now.
And VTubers have just kind of accidentally proven just how stupid this concept is. So,
Okay.
what exactly is a
I want him to make his case, and then I'll react to that. I'm sorry. I am seeing this for the first time. Hang on a second.
Manic, Pixie, Dreamgirl, you may ask? I'm sure some people who've clicked on this video already have a basic concept of it, but for those who don't know, Manic, Pixie, Dreamgirl—
Hang on. I'm going to bam this guy. Bam? No, ban. Nah. Ban. Eventually, when I figure out how my mouse works, I would like to ban you. Yay. Yeah, anyways.
is a trope, a character archetype of something commonly found in fiction, although can occasionally exist outside of it. And the character usually has the following traits. The first is that they are eccentric or has a quirky personality, you know, not like the other girls type. They're also
Sure.
young, female, and usually single, and so in fiction she will usually be the romantic interest or the hero of the story. She also often has interests and hobbies that are less common for a woman of her age. She's usually optimistic and positive about life, although this rule can be broken if it's in line with her eccentric nature. And lastly, she usually ends up—
Wait. Okay, are we talking about the premise of these subreddits? Let's back up for a second.
how stupid this concept is. So what exactly is a Manic, Pixie, Dreamgirl, you may ask? I'm sure
Manic, Pixie, Dream Girl. Okay.
People who've clicked on this video already have—
is a stock character type in films. Who coined the term after observing Kristen Dunst's character in Elizabethtown. 05 describes this archetype as that bubbly, shallow, cinematic creature that exists solely in the fevered imagination of sensitive writer directors. What? Yeah, basically it sounds like an archetype that was developed in East Stockton. Okay. I think I get the idea here. Let's move on.
A basic concept of it. But for those who don't know, Manic Pixie Dream Girl is a trope, a character
A trope. Okay.
archetype of something
Sorry, I have horrible ADD, so bear with me here.
commonly found in fiction, although can occasionally exist outside of it. And the character usually has the following traits. The first is that they are eccentric or has a quirky personality, you know, not like the other girls type. They're also young, female, and usually single, and so in fiction she will usually be the romantic interest or the hero.
My wife complains every time I use the ADD defense, by the way, but you know what? It's me against the void at this point, because I have like 0 subscribers, so I'll take it.
Of the story. She also often has interests and hobbies that are less common for a woman of her age. She's usually optimistic and positive about life, although this rule can be broken if it's in line with her eccentric nature. And lastly, she usually ends up teaching the hero of the story something about life. She either helps him get
Alright.
on his feet, provides him with some kind of motivation, or again, just serves as the basic love interest of the story. So basically, she's quirky, she's positive, she's fun, she's different. And she's also, strangely enough, an archetype that you
Crap, I knew someone exactly just like this in college. I can't tell you that story.
could easily apply to, well, pretty much every single successful VTuber. So I actually found that it was harder to find a VTuber that doesn't fit under the Manic Pixie Dream Girl label. The vast majority of the VTubing industry can be understood as young girls, usually
Wait. I'm sorry.
apply to, well, pretty much every single successful VTuber. So I actually found that it was harder to find a VTuber that doesn't fit under the Manic Pixie Dream Girl label. The vast majority of the VTubing industry can be understood as young girls, usually with a fun and upbeat disposition, using an anime model instead of just being a cam girl, and they usually have some kind of eccentric or unique backstory to their character. There's some men out there who are VTubers, but mostly it's young women, usually women under the age.
I will say, one thing that's nice about just being a VTuber as opposed to being a cam girl is that you have that veil of privacy. It's kind of nice.
Of 35. And what VTubers mostly do is provide entertainment in a manner that is mostly pandering to a male audience. So they'll do things like streaming video games or reacting to internet memes while being quirky and fun.
I'm sorry. Mario goes straight into the lava.
The only real difference here is, again, they're not in.
You're in World 4-4 and you're going straight to the lava. Well, I hope your controller's lagging or something, but anyways.
Entirely fictional. There is a real person.
Wait. I'm so distracted.
Mostly it's young women, usually women under the age of 35. And what VTubers mostly do is provide entertainment in a manner that is mostly pandering to a male audience. So they'll do things like streaming video games or reacting to internet memes while being quirky and fun. The only real difference here is, again, they're not entirely fictional. There is a real person behind.
For the record, my wife does not play video games at all. And I gave up all manner of gaming before I met my wife. All manner of gaming and watching anime, and you know, it gave me more to focus on girls, and hey, what can I say? I'm married. It worked for all intents and purposes. I'm still myself, I guess.
In the model. But at the same time, they're still somewhat playing a character. I mean, most of them break character all the time, and only occasionally play within their role. In many ways, VTubers are just female streamers, using an anime character. But the point is, the success
I'm Sora 2, the new AI in town.
My apologies.
We're not afraid. Our
Successful ones, at least, nearly all fall under the Manic Pixie
I don't have a budget for premium, so bear with me.
Dream Girl archetype, which is very, very interesting, because the thing about the Manic Pixie Dream Girl is that it's also an archetype that is very deeply hated by
Wait, he pronounces it archetype? I thought it was archetype. Maybe that's besides the point.
the Manic Pixie Dream Girl is that it's also an archetype that is very deeply hated by the sort of neo-Marxist woke progressive types. And they of course use the usual prog snarl words. It's problematic, or it's sexist, or that it's
Problematic, sexist, harmful,
harmful in some way. Because, you know, it hurt their subjective feelings, so therefore it's harmful. Their logic is flawless. Don't question it, don't think about it, just accept it. And they've been talking about this for much longer than VTubers have been a
Right.
thing, and so VTubers aren't really their go-to example. Instead, they complain about characters usually in mainstream movies like Summer from, you know, Days of Summer, or Sam from Garden State.
Dude, Garden State was pretty awesome, by the way.
Or Ruby from Ruby Sparks. And
Have not seen.
their complaints about it are as follows. The first is that the Manic Pixie Dream Girl only exists to help the male hero out of depression, and that she is therefore just a tool to be used to this end. The second complaint is that she has no life of her own, and often her family has no part in her depiction. Also, she has no will of her own, and just goes along with whatever men want her to do, which is then used to imply that she's failing to pursue her own happiness, and that she's helping men grow while experiencing no growth herself. And that the Manic Pixie Dream Girl is just in general unrealistic. Overall, the main complaint here seems to be just woke progressive feminists screeching that women are not objects that exist to help men or inspire them or make men happy or whatever. And that the Manic Pixie Dream Girl archetype somehow implies that they are. Now, like all
does that logically follow? Show me your premises and show me how you reach the conclusion. That's all I gotta say. Let's see where this is going.
all midwit takes, there is a base level of truth in these people whining about Manic Pixie Dream Girls, because unrealistic characters to serve as romantic interest absolutely do exist, and they can get pretty darn cringe. For example, a common trope you might see in romance novels written for women is an alpha male Giga Chad with supernatural powers, taking interest in a totally ordinary, normal, boring girl for basically no reason, and he then proceeds to take care of her and protect her throughout the story for, again, basically no reason. Twilight
To be fair, a lot of human love is quite irrational. So it's not entirely separated from reality. However, I want to see where this argument is going.
It is usually given as the basic example of this, but it happens a lot. And on the flip side, you can also find unrealistic female characters in things like Japanese harem anime, where an extremely boring male character, with no personality so to speak, that always looks like Shinji for some reason, gets his
I'm sorry.
pick of a slew of extremely attractive female characters who all have the hots for him for basically no reason whatsoever. He just kind of exists, and suddenly all these girls who have been designed to have absolutely no unattractive traits in them whatsoever suddenly all want him. And it's true that these tropes can be bad, however, they're not exactly sexist and harmful, at least not to the gender they represent. Rather, they're usually harmful more so to the people reading them. The problem with these kind of characters is that they're wish fulfillment characters. They give young readers an extremely unrealistic expectation for the opposite sex, which can absolutely lead to people becoming cold and alone. I mean, there's a reason why harem anime is often laughed at as a genre of anime that is mainly for virgins, because it kinda is, to be honest. A really basic red pill advice for young men is that you can't just sit around and wait for some 10 out of 10 pure-hearted female with absolutely no flaws about her whatsoever to just magically take an interest in you and do all the work and just want you for no reason. That just doesn't happen. Rather, what happens most of
The closest thing I've ever had to the harem situation was I went onto a dating website and I logged in. There were girl profiles everywhere, and I was surrounded by all these prospects of women. And sure enough, you send some message to these ladies, and sometimes they just respond, and you take it from there. That doesn't exactly count as a harem, I guess, but Close enough. It is quite exhilarating when they respond. I had a login to a website and I had a 7-month subscription. I believe it was in that 7th month when I finally met my now wife. But for the 6 months prior, I was dealing with all these women that, man, I went on a lot of dates actually. Where was I going with that? I can't remember. Let's go on.
The time is that you end up with the partner you earn. So in reality, you have to become the kind
The partner you earn. No. It's the partner you attract and click with. Earn? I object to the earn thing. Nobody deserves anybody.
of man that the kind of woman you want finds attractive. And of course, the same thing is true in reverse. If a woman is not attractive to the kind of man that she finds attractive, she's not going to get that man. There are exceptions to this basic rule, but most of the time you can't just do nothing and have your perfect dream partner fall into your life. You have
I think I'm obsessed with the exceptions, but anyways.
To actually do something. And in many ways, it's very similar to economics. You have to offer people something that they want in order to get what you want. And there's another channel known as Home Math that kind of goes into this extensively when talking about relationship advice. A big problem with the dating market is that too many people are going into it only thinking about what they can get out of it, rather than going into it thinking about what they have to give, or what exactly is it about you that makes you a good partner. And I have a special understanding of this because one thing people might not know about me is that I'm actually a married man. I normally would never bring this up, and I normally don't
Hey, I'm also a married man.
Really talk about myself much because it doesn't really matter in the context of philosophical or political channel. But it is relevant because I can point out one very simple fact about a lasting marriage, which is that you have to care about what your partner wants. You have to care about their well-being. In order for love to...
My philosophy, by the way, when I was dating... Dude, I like that coffee. Okay, where do you find a barista that actually gets those hard patterns in your coffee? Does Starbucks do that? I don't know. What was he talking about? I can't remember. You said, okay, yeah. You need to find a person who's aligned with your values. Flat out. Because if you're not in the same mission, you're just going to clash with each other, and for what purpose? Only to burn out. I mean, I guess you have to think ahead about what your goals are, right?
Work and for it to last, you have to wake up every day thinking about what you have to give, rather than just what you can.
What you have. Oh yeah. So. See, this is the thing about a relationship. It has to be give and take. But as the person who's in the relationship, you have to be more focused on what you can give than the take. And the reason for that is when you get to take is it comes as a pleasant surprise every time. And sometimes overabundantly. And it's beautiful when it works out.
Get out of your partner. If I didn't care about my wife's well-being, or if she didn't care about my well-being, it wouldn't work. You both have to genuinely respect each other's will, almost as if it were your own. And so that is just kind of the basic nugget of truth that exists within this critique of the Manic Pixie Dream Girl archetype that we're seeing from these neo-Marxist woke progressive feminist types. The problem is, and where they completely screw up and get it all completely backwards, is that what they're whining about isn't actually unrealistic at all. I decided to watch some of the movies and look at some of the characters that are often called out as being Manic Pixie Dream Girls, and the only consistency I found is that they were women, they had some femininity and some quirkiness to their personality, they liked to have fun, and they didn't hate men. So to any woman out watching this, if you meet these 4 traits, congratulations, you apparently don't exist. So what we are seeing here is kind of the reverse problem. Rather than setting an unrealistically high bar for a potential partner, what we're really seeing here is an example example of feminist critique going too far. They're setting an unrealistically low bar for women to go for. Or if you are anything other than a man-hating, scowling, strong woman who don't need no man.
So you want to be...
Yeah. Eventually I'll have a better subscription. What am I looking at here?
Be a software engineer. Go to boot.dev. Make a free account.
Then you somehow represent a problematic,
Hey, it's Leaf.
unrealistic standard. And that's of course completely ridiculous. It kind of reminds me of the male incel community complaining about how women aren't interested in men who are poor, stupid, and short, or otherwise lack any masculinity in them whatsoever. Just because standards exist doesn't mean you're being oppressed. And look, I get it. It can be really hard to meet some of those standards, especially as a guy, because some of those standards are indeed a lot higher. But whining about it doesn't really change the fact that that bar exists. And going back to VTubers and examining them alongside the movies that get accused of having Manic, Pixie, Dreamgirls in them, we can easily see how this bar isn't really that unrealistic at all. And a lot of the critique also has some really obviously faulty logic when you think about it, which really shouldn't surprise anybody, because one of the main central components of neo-Marxist philosophy is that they tend to view everything through the false dichotomy of victims and oppressors, when in reality
Yeah. Anyways.
social interaction is much more complicated than that. And as a result of this, they tend to commit false dichotomy fallacies and make bad faith arguments all the time. For example, one really stupid and very common false dichotomy is objectification. For example, attractive female characters in a story exist, or lots of YouTubers like to use sexy models. And therefore, men who enjoy that are objectifying them. They only view her as an object.
Okay. Here's my objection. Is there's a twofold approach here. Women should not objectify themselves. But in turn, men should not objectify women. And so it's not an either or, it's a both and. So there's responsibility at both ends. That's all I gotta say.
But that's actually a false dichotomy. It is entirely possible, in fact very common, for a man to find a woman sexy and attractive and still respect her as a human being with human rights. Just because sex sells doesn't mean that men only view women as sex objects. You can absolutely find a woman sexy and still respect her. And yet whenever I see these radical feminist neo-Marxist critiques of art and literature and whatnot, they just automatically assume that any attractive female character is being objectified, which is objectively invalid reasoning. Those two scales are not tied together. Men's brains do not work in a way where the more
I mean, I could take this in 500 different directions, but I'm just gonna let the video play.
attractive we see a woman, we then automatically have to see her as less of a human being. The personality scale and the look scale are entirely capable of going up and down independently of each other. And yet, because neo-Marxist philosophy tends to view the evil, straight, white male as the oppressor group, it is automatically always taken in bad faith, and so it is assumed that the evil, straight, white male must therefore be objectifying any woman who is found to be attractive, or any woman in art or literature who is attractive. And that's objectively not true. It's a false dichotomy fallacy. It's not a sustainable argument, and as I've just shown you, it falls apart very easily when examined. And here's the thing, the same thing is true for pretty much all the other complaints about the Manic Pixie Dream Girl. For example, going back to VTubers, there are a lot of young, depressed men in Western society. That's just an unfortunate reality, and for many of them, watching VTubers helps them out of that depression. Does that mean they see the VTuber as just a tool to bring him out of depression? Just an object with no will of her own? Just a means to an end of that goal? No, of course not. That's ridiculous. That is just another false dichotomy. For the exact same reason, just because someone helped you out.
Okay, what is this game? I want to check this out. If anybody in the comment section knows what this game is, let me know. I want to try it out.
Of depression doesn't mean you view them as a tool with no human agency of their own. That's ridiculous. And going back to mainstream movies, we then have to ask, so why is it that Sam in Garden State is therefore just an automatic objectified tool for helping Andrew out of depression? Why
She's objectified?
state is therefore just an automatic objectified tool for helping Andrew out of depression. Why does that need to imply that she has no agency of her own? It really
Are you kidding me? She does have agency.
doesn't make any sense as soon as you realize that it's just all
Like, if you've ever seen the movie, that makes no sense.
same reason. Just because someone helped you out of depression doesn't mean you view them as a tool with no human agency of their own. That's ridiculous. And going back to mainstream movies, we then have to ask, so why is it that Sam in Garden State is therefore just an automatic objectified tool for helping Andrew out of depression? Why does that need to imply that she has no agency of her own? It really doesn't make any sense as soon as you realize that it's just all false dichotomy. And she's also not a perfect girl at all. She's not unrealistic. She has problems of her own. If you actually watch the movie, Sam has some pretty serious issues. Or how about the idea that the Manic Pixie Dream Girl has no life of her own? I mean, where's that even coming from? So because a girl doesn't open up about who she is and give us a massive backstory about everything in her life, then she has no life of her own? I mean, plenty of streamers, not just VTubers, and plenty of content creators don't talk about their life that much outside of what content they make. That doesn't imply that we have no life, and it certainly doesn't mean that you're only allowed to look at them as someone who has no life. Again, another stupid, bad faith false dichotomy, where the evil, straight white male is assumed to be a villain who only views others as a means to an end. And then the weirdest critique of the Manic Pixie Dream Girl has to be failing to pursue her own.
Okay, so the premise of this video is that female VTubers are basically Manic Pixie Dream Girls. Sorry, I'm as dense as a pile of rocks. Oh boy. Sorry. I was distracted by a very strange text from a friend. Anyways.
Happiness. Because that's a case where it can be entirely reciprocal. Lots of people have fun making other people happy. That makes them happy. Having fun and being entertaining for others can be a mutually beneficial act. Like with Summer in 500 Days of Summer. And all the silly antics that she's pulling, her character seems to be having just as much fun. In fact, in many cases, she seemed to have. You can tell that they're genuinely enjoying it and having fun with their audience. Which then kind of brings you to another problem with neo-Marxist woke progressive thought, which is that they tend to have a very bizarre zero-sum mentality towards the world. They tend to think that one person's gain is another person's loss. One class is the victim, the other class is the oppressor. All again stemming from false dichotomies. And what ends up happening as a result of this is that the sort of radical neo-Marxist feminist types end up shaming any woman who doesn't hate men, which is probably why I see the word pick-misha often being thrown at VTubers. Now, on the surface of the word pick-me,
I'm sorry, I had a text exchange. Let me back up for a second.
the people have fun making other people happy.
Sorry. Here we go.
That makes them happy. Having fun
Where were we?
have no life, and it certainly doesn't mean that you're only allowed to look at them as someone who has no life. Again, another stupid, bad faith false dichotomy, where the evil, straight white male is assumed to be a villain who only views
Evil, straight... I mean... Straight, irrelevant. White, irrelevant. Male...
bad faith false dichotomy, where the evil, straight white male is assumed to be a villain who only views others as a means to an end. And then the weirdest critique of the Manic Pixie Dream Girl has to be failing to pursue her own happiness. Because that's a case where it can be entirely reciprocal. Lots of people have fun making other people happy. That makes
It's over, Dragonborn. You can't defeat me. I know, but he can. Mods are enabled. What?
them happy. Having fun and being
What is this joke? Whatever.
Entertaining for others can be a mutually beneficial act. Like with Summer in 500 Days of Summer. And all the silly antics that she's pulling, her character seems to be having just as much fun. In fact, in many cases, she seemed to have more fun than the male main character. And with VTubers, most of those girls stream for hours on end, and you can tell that they're genuinely enjoying it and having fun with their audience. Which then kind of brings you to another problem with neo-Marxist woke progressive thought, which is that they tend to have a very bizarre zero-sum mentality towards the world. They tend to think that one person's gain pain is another person's loss. One class is the victim, the other class is the oppressor. All again stemming from false dichotomies. And what ends up happening as a result of this is that the sort of radical neo-Marxist feminist types end up shaming any woman who doesn't hate men, which is probably why I see the word pick-misha often being thrown at VTubers.
Pick-misha. I've always thought that the pick-me thing was... What does it even mean? Pick me. Marry me. Okay. Yeah, okay. Don't women want to be picked? This is kind of a weird phrase to begin with.
Now, on the surface of the word, pick-misha is defined as a woman who devalues herself in order to get picked by men. Or
devalues herself? Don't you mean that she's marketing herself as a woman? Marketing. This is so dumb.
a woman who is constantly seeking validation from men. But the problem is, the word in practice generally gets used against any lady who happens to get along with men just fine, or just does something that the neo-Marxists don't like. For example, apparently Dipper Dog is a pick-me because she reacted to a video of men doing better than...
I mean, a lot of women are generally better at stuff than men at this thing and that thing. So, what's the problem here? I don't know.
Women at hunting, so she had fun laughing at one of the basic biological differences between male and female in humans. Apparently this is pick-me behavior. Or how about another example? Apparently Smug Elena is a pick-me for making fun of game journos over the whole Black Myth Wukong fiasco. Okay, so sometimes VTubers make fun of woketoids too, and that somehow makes them pick-me's. Gee, it's almost like pick-me isn't really a word that's used with any kind of consistency in regards to what it's supposed to be defined as.
See, that's the thing. If you have a word, define it. And if I don't know what that word means, then you and I cannot have an honest conversation. Period.
It's almost like it's just being used as shaming language against any woman who steps out of line and goes against the cult of woke. And the more you look into it, that seems to be exactly what's going on. Like another silly example, apparently every single VTuber who played Hogwarts Legacy, from Pikami, Pipkin Pippa, is a pick-me girl for playing Hogwarts Legacy. Which is weird, because Hogwarts Legacy...
I heard about this, and I kind of want to play Hogwarts Legacy for that reason.
It wasn't even really that anti-woke. It's just that the neo-Marxists have decided that for some reason J.K. Rowling is literally the female reincarnation of Germany Bad Mustache Man, and therefore the game is problematic, and therefore every VTuber who plays it is a pick-me. The whole discourse surrounding it and how this word is used is just so completely unhinged and insane that I almost don't even need to point out the logical problems with or the false dichotomies and bad faith assertions anymore. The inconsistency is just so obvious that it practically refutes itself. And if you don't believe me, try searching for the word pick-me on the internet and how it's used yourself. It seems to always be used against any woman who does anything nice for a man, any woman who sets any kind of standards for herself whatsoever, or just any girl who just does anything at all that the woke left doesn't approve of. That's probably why the smart move is to do what Pippa did, where she adopted the pick-me label for herself as her government name. I would strongly advise this to any woman who finds herself being called a pick-me. Don't take it seriously. Just laugh and move on. And fortunately, it seems that most VTubers seem to understand this. The haters gonna hate mentality is likely the best move here. And so what's the real conclusion here? Where am I going with this? And the answer to that is that VTubers have accidentally proven that labels like Manic, Pixie, Dreamgirl, and Pick-misha...
Popeye's $6 big box is back. 2 pieces of signature chicken.
Sorry, hang on a second.
Or 3 tenders, 2 sides, and a biscuit.
Are really just crab mentality, which is the if I can't have it, neither can anyone else mentality. It's a very bizarre and toxic psychological phenomenon where people will try to undermine the success of others. Because one thing that's interesting about VTubers is, again, I'm talking about mostly successful VTubers here. A lot of these girls actually make pretty decent money. They don't make as good of money as some people think they do, but for any girl who manages to hit around 100k followers, it can become a pretty stable upper middle class income. And the girls who manage to hit 1 million can also hit the 7-figure mark in their income as well. Which is kind of the bizarre irony of the situation. I've often said the biggest problem with modern feminism isn't so much that it defends women's rights, but rather the problem is it doesn't really defend women's rights. It instead tries to entitle women with rights that have nothing to do with property rights, as a form of weird gender socialism.
I'm sorry, I'm just just laughing at the leg crossing. It's kind of funny.
To convince women that they're always the victim. You know, going back to the victim-oppressor dichotomy.
What am I watching? I'm the worst ADD. I'm sorry. I'm gonna look away from the television screen. I'm gonna let him talk. I'm sorry.
Million can also hit the 7-figure mark in their income as well, which is kind of the bizarre irony of the situation. I've often said the biggest problem with modern feminism isn't so much that it defends women's rights, but rather the problem is it doesn't really defend women's rights. It instead tries to entitle women with rights that have nothing to do with property rights, as a form of weird gender socialism to convince women that they're always the victim. You know, going back to the victim-oppressor dichotomy of the whole neo-Marxist ideology. And yet here they are shaming successful women because some of those successful women are turning against the woke brigade. It really shows just how toxic the ideology is. But perhaps the worst part about this isn't really something to do with VTubers specifically, and instead just manifests as general bad dating advice directed at young women. If I were to look at both the red pill manosphere and compare it to, say, female dating strategy, one could attempt to argue that, oh, they're both equally bad, they're two sides of the same coin. But that's not actually true, because the red pill community at least gives men basic, decent advice, even if it really can be a little bit misogynist at times. For example, when
just for the record, I do not identify with the red pill community. I really do try to analyze things on a case-by-case basis and to try to be objective to the best of my ability. That's not to say I'm not biased. I'm totally biased. But at least I can admit I'm biased.
Andrew Tate says that you should lift and that men should be constantly improving themselves, he's correct. Some of the other things he says may be questionable, but the basics of the advice is correct, which is that you need to be constantly striving to be the best version of yourself that you can possibly be, because that way you're focusing on what you have to give, which in turn increases your value in the dating marketplace, or just makes you a
nice snatches.
Higher value partner in general. And you see that within pretty much all of the red pill community. Constantly improving oneself is always a part of the message. And yet when you look at the advice
by the way, I'm no expert on snatches, that's all.
Given to young women in places like female dating strategy, or pretty much any dating advice from a sort of neo-Marxist woke feminist lens, this angle of self-improvement doesn't really exist. Going back to how Ho Maths puts it, it's stuck at stage 3. They're stuck in the mindset of thinking of...
What is this chart? Who dictates what this chart is? I live in a world of different people, each with their own agenda. They all want what they want, and they're looking out for themselves because they have to.
Relationships only in the context of what you can get out of them. And so the self-improvement element is largely missing from their advice. There's a little bit of it, but it's a drop in the bucket in a sea of entitlement. For example, what is a high-value woman? Well, according to them, a queen. And what is a queen?
A queen. A queen.
Well, it's a woman who already knows that she's high value. And if that sounds like circular reasoning, well, because it is. And therefore, the queens deserve high value men because they just do. And if you're a woman and you dare question that, and you try to think about what you can do to improve yourself, well then, you guessed it, you're a pick-me. Do you question the narrative that all the evil straight white males are in fact a bunch of bastards who only want sex? Well, you're a pick-me. You being nice to men? Nope, can't do that because men just want to sleep with you. And any lady who questions that is, again, you guessed it, a pick-me. And while there is a little bit of correct advice here, like for example, I will never be with a man who cheats on me, it doesn't...
I think this whole video went way further into theory than application than I expected, but let me continue to see where this is going.
Matter because that one's kinda obvious. There's nothing in here that teaches young women what they actually need to know, which is how to improve themselves and how to select for men who are actually interested in commitment. Instead, what I see from this ideology seems to start out from the assertion that you are already maximum value, and so ladies are therefore entitled to commitment from men. And depending on whether you are a man or a woman, if you question this, you are either a pick-me or a sexist. And that is not good advice for young women. Unless, of course, you're trying to write a book that is designed to teach girls how to wake up one day and look in the mirror discovering that they are 50 years old and still single and never married. Thinking that you're entitled to commitment is terrible advice. And if we look at similar subreddits to FDS, by shared user base, we can see that this is exactly what's happening. Dating over 30, dating over 40, child...
Purple pill debate, dating over 30, ask women over 30. I mean, I'm 41. Who am I to judge? Dating over 40? The Girl Survival Guide. CPTSD. I don't know what that is. Surviving child free. Ask women advice. Marriage to ex. Oh my gosh.
Free? This is definitely not the advice that any young lady should be listening to. And then you look at the red pill community for men, and it's a completely different story. There's plenty of self-improvement here. Seduction, bodybuilding, male fashion advice, fitness, social skills. This is actual proper advice. And the most important difference, though, is that you almost never see men tearing each other down for being successful. And yet it happens all the time in the circles of fake advice given to women. Constantly
My only criticism is that I wish he would cite sources when he makes claims. That's all.
clawing at each other and ripping each other apart for that one time she did something nice for a boy. It's
I mean, he could be right. I don't know. But he should make himself credible.
pretty ridiculous.
And I apologize because I have somewhat of an academic background, I suppose you could say, but you gotta be careful when you make these claims like these.
And it sadly shows that Western society still has yet to fully learn. There's a legendary article called The Misandry Bubble, written by Imran Khan of The Futurist, and one of the most important parts about it that most people kind of gloss over is
We know what we are, but we know not what we may become. Okay, sure. The Misandry Bubble. Why does it seem that American society is in decline? The fairness and...
this section right
I don't have patience for this.
here. The basic premise of this article is that men and women are equally valuable, but have different strengths and weaknesses, and different priorities.
Yeah.
Society is strongest when men and women have roles that are complementary to each other, rather than of an adversarial nature.
Yes.
Furthermore, when one gender, either one, is mistreated, the other ends up becoming disenfranchised as well. Any society that wishes to sustain itself needs for men and women to get along with each other, or else both parties are going to end up suffering.
So from a Catholic perspective, men and women complement each other. They have different strengths and weaknesses. Seems pretty obvious.
Culture of their society becomes more and more toxic. And so when you see progressive pseudo-intellectuals under the guise of women's rights trying to demonize men and telling women that holding herself to any kind of standard is giving in to some kind of sexist stereotype, over time that mentality is doomed to end up harming women just as much as it harms men. And VTubers have gained success by just kind of accidentally breaking out of this mold. They've found a niche market in being fun and entertaining and not hating men. So it's kind of a silly but also very real example of the free market kind of fixing it. But unfortunately, there's still a lot of work to do, and the dating market in general needs to be repaired from the damage that has been caused to it by this neo-Marxist regime. And hopefully today I have helped by pointing out just how ridiculous and inconsistent the flawed reasoning that this regime uses really is. Which is important because a lot of these people who believe in this ideology are in fact mainstream corporate journos. And you will see this kind of inconsistent reasoning in mainstream publications. But hopefully you now know how to spot it and not fall for it. And so for now, that is all I have to say. Thanks for watching. Please like, comment, and subscribe. And if you enjoy my content and want to support me, you can do so on either Ko-Fi, Subscribestar, or by buying some merch, or by again checking out Ground News. Because they really do a great job in showing how the same story can be shown in a completely different light from different sources. But yeah, again,
I'm not gonna lie, maybe I'm a little bit tired, but nonetheless, very entertaining video. Check out MentisWave, Manic, Pixie, Dreamgirls, how VTubers accidentally debunk woke ideologies. Check out his stuff. That's all I got. So yeah, I'm gonna call it a day for today. This was gonna be a shorter stream anyways, but sorry, I gotta deal with some other stuff on my end, so I'm gonna wrap it up here. Have a good night. God bless you all.
So from here, we get
Sleep tight.
so we're gonna go with the
Oh, here's that a commercial ad. Gone. enjoy more of this copyright-free royalty music. Bye. Pretty sure that's the wrong thumbnail, by the way. There we go. Yeah, stream ending. Let's see what else can I do here. Good night, y'all. God bless you.